We're going to look at how the IELTS exam is structured overall in this lecture. If that's something that you already feel quite comfortable about, if you've taken IELTS before, or if you've watched one of my earlier videos on this, then feel free to skip this lecture. For those who do not feel comfortable with how the exam is structured, if you feel like you need a little bit more guidance in this area, this lecture aims to provide you with that. Let's start by thinking about what IELTS is exactly. Well, IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System. That comes together to create IELTS. Notice it is not IELTS and never has been IELTS, so don't pronounce it like that or write it like that. It is the world's most popular English language proficiency test, and over 2 million tests are taken per year, and this is a number which continues to grow year on year. It assesses all our English skills: listening, reading, writing and speaking, which we're going to look at in this course. And it is accepted by schools and universities and employers and immigration authorities in English-speaking countries around the world. Let's have a look at a walkthrough. So, there's quite a lot of information on this page, but let's look at some of the basic things here. First of all, IELTS is split into two modules. You have your academic module and your general training module. You select which module you're going to do based on what your requirements are. You should check this with your industry, with your employer, with your institution before going through with the choice. Your academic module is usually for applying for universities or trying to get an academic career, whereas your general training module, that's often more for general visa applications or non-academic careers in an English-speaking country. But as I say, make sure you find out which module you need. Regardless of which module you choose, every IELTS exam is split into 4 components: listening, reading, writing and speaking. I recommend that you pause the video here just to have a look through this table. The table should give you a clear enough indication of how this exam is structured, but if you do have any questions after having read this through, then do let me know. We're going to focus on the speaking part, so let's have a look at that together. So the time that you are given for the speaking exam ranges, depending on your examiner and the questions you get, between 11 and 14 minutes. And this time is split into 3 parts with no set number of questions. Part 1 is called the interview. This takes around 4 to 5 minutes or 3 to 4 minutes. Part 2 is called the long turn or the talk, and this can take about 3 or 4 minutes. And part 3 is called the discussion, and this again takes about 4 to 5 minutes. They're roughly about the same length for each part of the test here. Don't worry about each individual part. We're going to look at each individual part in the next lecture. You'll notice that the academic and the general training modules are quite different, but you don't really need to worry about this when it comes to the speaking. The differences are in the reading test and the writing test. Again, you can have a look at this on this page now. We're not going to go through it now because we're focusing on the speaking exam overall, but it is worth bearing in mind the differences between those two modules. If we think about how IELTS is scored, the first thing to mention is that there is no pass or fail in IELTS. You're graded in each component, and the average of those components combined gives you your overall score. So for example, if you get a 6 in the listening, and then a 7 in the reading, a 6 in the writing, and then a 7 in the speaking, your overall band score will be 6.5. If your band score lands at a 0.25 or a 0.75, your score will be rounded up to the next half band. So if it's a 0.25, you'll go up to 0.5. And if you're at a 0.75, you'll go up to the next full band. Remember that IELTS scores are valid for 2 years after certification, so don't dawdle when it comes to applying to your respective industries. If you know your CEFR score, you can check that out against the roughly average band score for IELTS on the left there. So we're looking at band 7 here. That generally indicates a CEFR score of C1. Finally, if we think about the score requirements for IELTS, if you want to get into university and do a foundation course, you generally need around about a 5.5 to 6. In order to gain access to a bachelor's degree course, you're looking for more of a band 6 to 6.5. It'll be a 6.5 to a 7 for entry to a master's degree course. And anything that's band 7 or above is typically required to work in English-speaking countries in professions such as medicine and law and accounting and academic research. It's important to stress here that you need to check with each employer or university or immigration office exactly what score you need, as different places will require different scores. Okay, hopefully that gave you a decent breakdown of the IELTS exam. Now we can look at the speaking component in a bit more detail in the next lecture.